Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today, in this video, I'm going to be going over what I think are some of the best suggestions that, if the game included these, it would take it to the next level. And we're going to run through these pretty quick. Again, I have a number of them. I'll also share this sheet that I have as well at the end of the video, but I'm going to read these off of the sheet that I have so far, starting with number one, which is, we'll start in kind of sections, right? So Roots of War is the first one. One, being able to field multiple Roots of War teams from within your alliance. So if my alliance name in this example is NAST for my abbreviation, let's say it's NASTi Warriors, I should be able to have NAST1, NAST2, NAST3, or NAST A, B, C, however you want to do it. But being able to field multiple ROW teams from within an alliance, I think, is incredibly important, because the fact is that you have enough players in a lot of these alliances, especially those that are active, where they want to be able to participate, but they're limited, and they can't because they already are basically taking the best of the players in those alliances. And then the others are having to either leave and basically start up shells, or they have to go and join other alliances. And depending on the season you're in, for example, if it's Season 2+, there's just certain limitations that you have on being able to leave alliances. And or if you do leave, you may be stuck there until, again, near the end of the season, where you can then rejoin alliances. So being able to field multiple teams within an alliance, I think, is something that should happen, and it'll bring even more quality of life to those alliances themselves. Second one here in Roots of War is showing which day and time slots which teams have which teams and preview their stats. Similar to like the match preview screen, this is something we've talked about before, where I'm still seeing a number of complaints and feedback from alliance leads and those who are organizing ROW times on just not being able to get the most favorable matchups, ones that are as balanced as possible. And a large part of it, I even started seeing a slight uptick in the number of leads or ROW reps in my Discord that were asking people, hey, what time slot are you going into? And the fact is that this is something that is really plaguing, right? Now, obviously, if we had 1,000 servers and there was over 1,000 alliances or 2,000 alliances, right? This, obviously, as time, hopefully this will increase. But the fact is that if you can see which alliances, what their rating number is, their MMR, and just simply, like, that's it. Doesn't have to be, and then just the day and the time slot, or you have days and time slots and you can look at them. Or you can get a recommendation on, if you go into ROW, it recommends, hey, go into this time slot because you could get paired up with this alliance, right? Or you'll just choose a time slot and then it'll recommend it for someone else. But even if you just want to keep it super simple, just allow for those that are selecting time slots to look at who has already signed up for that given time slot, and then you can kind of just do the calculations. Are there 3 teams there? Okay. Is one of those teams closer in my rating and global ranking? Yeah. Okay, well, maybe I'll go do that time slot. The fact is that I think there's opportunity here for the improvement on where you can expand ROW on this front. And even if you just test it out for a season, and let's say it's god-awful, then remove it. It's not something that has to stay there forever, but at least be willing to apply some trial and error. Next one is being able to watch highlighted matches across the game, not just within your alliance. I think it's great that we can now spectate ROW matches for players that are in the alliance, even if you're not participating. But being able to have some type of interface similar to what like Osiris League has on ROK, and again, I don't know if you could watch matches there, but just the way that the interface is set up. However, I'd like for COD to be able to have it to where maybe they'll showcase a couple matches every 2 weeks, and then players can go and spectate those. Even if you start off simple, so the system doesn't get overloaded, and then maybe expand it going forward. But maybe like 2 or 3 matches would be cool, right? Or like a highlighted match across each day and time slot. That'd be dope. Then let's get to, and again, I think it would allow for people to get more invested into Roots of War, right? Where now you're kind of getting this like competitive esport type aspect from it, where people are now going to care about it more. And then that can bleed into doing things like bettings and other things, right? So let's, which kind of gets into my next thing, right? Being able to eventually bet on matches would be cool. Maybe you bet resources, maybe you bet gems, that would be cool. Or maybe it's a custom currency that you can earn, right? Similar to what they've done in Rock, and then you gotta have its own dedicated store. Next one is, I think, a global leaderboard to see how all the ROW teams are doing across the game. I think this is really important if you want to start, again, investing into the awareness, into the engagement, into the socialization and the participation, whether that's playing or spectating of the game. or of this mode in particular. So I think adding a global leaderboard that shows you wins and losses, and then like the matches, maybe just like some quick synopsises or summaries of their match histories, that would be really cool as well. And then I think this next one is really important, and I can't really understate this: private matches or custom lobbies. I think, and this is really for multiple reasonings. One, you can do practice matches or scrimmages with other teams. So like, let's say you want to reach out to a team and you guys want to organize a friendly match to practice against. That would be cool. I think being able to practice against the AI would be cool as well. Being able to go into ROW with no one in there and it's empty is also important. These give you opportunities to simulate basically what a professional sport or a sport practicing environment emulates, which is being able to practice openings, transitions, objectives, formations, lineups, callouts, markers, etc., you name it. Being able to have a fully immersive Roots of War private lobby that you could do multiple things in is incredibly important. I think that would allow for the mode itself and the competitive environment surrounding it to elevate that much more. Then let's talk about PvE. So PvE for me, I think larger scale behemoth raids with up to all players in an alliance or just having no participation cap is something to seriously look at, right? Whether that's a higher level than elite, or if it's just allowing for there to be more players. Like if there's some raids that are maybe just too difficult, maybe allowing more players, or just doing something different. If it's adding another behemoth and then you're just adding, I think having some type of event where up to all players in the alliance can participate for like an alliance-wide raid would be dope. Even if it's something separate that's not necessarily related. Maybe it's like you teleport to another thing, like you do like a WoW raid as an example. Not teleport, but just kind of go into like a dungeon or like its own thing, right? I think that would be really important, once again, to improve upon the engagement and the inclusion of the players in the alliance. Next one is diverse alliance raids. And this is kind of similar to the larger scale, and I guess it's kind of the two things wrapped in one, but diverse alliance raids, right? Think like MMO, WoW raids. I think taking inspiration from other games and looking at how they do that, I think there's really some dope opportunity here within Call of Dragons. The next one for me is hero trust levels on the PvE side. So I think once you get, from what I've noticed, once you get past 5 and you get to maybe 6 or 7, you don't get any rewards, or as far as like the exclamation point rewards specifically. And then sometimes after you get done going through, if a hero has a dialogue feature for you or a trust dialogue feature, or set instance, if you will, and you go through it, sometimes you don't get any rewards. So I think the exclamation point reward should go all the way up to 10 if that's the max. And then also, if you're just doing additional ones throughout, I think you should also get some rewards, even if they don't necessarily have to be amazing, but being able to get those every time you go through that, I think, is important. Next one is behemoth strength. I think the behemoth strength should be scaled based on troop size and then kind of mix of tier troops, right? So if that's and maybe I should say more troop size, right? I think the challenge right now is that the behemoths are being scaled and then they're increasing troop size. I think the way that it should be done is that they're scaling behemoth strength based on average, based on troop size for that season, right? And then looking at it as, okay, well, this behemoth 1, maybe, it's like a pass, right? Like a pass, you only need 1 million T3s, and then for the level next pass, maybe you need 1.5 million T3s, and it's 1 million T4s, 2 million T4s, 1 million T5s, whatever it may be, right? I think doing it in that type of a way, but you're looking at it based on troop size and then mix of tier troops on the behemoth levels, instead of doing the behemoth levels, already having them preset, and then just thinking that you're going to adjust and increase the troop size to accommodate, right? To me, that just seems very backwards, and we're already seeing some negative impacts because of that with, again, the outcry and the outcrying support for reducing troop capacity, right? From the 350 to now 300, going from in Season 2+ when that happened. Then I think the next one here on PvE, I think doing like world firsts. So this is something that's really cool, where I think WoW does this and some other MMOs as well, where if you do a certain, like if you accomplish something and you're like the first alliance to do it across the entire game, I think having certain leaderboards that you could see globally across the game, but also having like an announcement banner similar to what you have, like when a pass is captured, or if someone finishes and captures a behemoth, right, it'll have something that goes across the screen. I think something like that would be dope. because I think that would give some value there to things like world firsts, especially even if you do it different than like the Behemoth Elite raids, if you want to have like a separate thing that you eventually do. But I think that's a way to, once again, allow for the community to kind of reinvest, and you can reset those as well. Do those each new season, or maybe you reset those every quarter, whatever it may be. I think that's a way to keep people more engaged. Then we get to maps. So maps for me is pretty simple. I think with the maps themselves, they just need to have neutral. I think it depends on how they do the map, but I think if they're going to kind of keep along the same trending line that we're seeing right now with how maps are being done for KVK maps specifically, I think one of the things that I would like to see is for them to just basically have neutral PvP zones or neutral PvP areas throughout each zone. So the example we give here on S2 Plus is, you can't go from Mesavin to Scalera. Why not have a neutral PvP zone here? And, and then you still have your Runic, right? As an example. Like, here's a good like in between Ennead and Mesavin. Runic's here, neutral PvP is here. Why not have a neutral PvP here and Runic as well? Same thing when you're in Zone 3. Neutral PvP, Runic. That's something, and so I think that is very important and needs to be really looked at when it comes to having those types of areas. The next thing I'm going to talk about with maps is zone scaling. For having appropriate zone scaling, where you allow as many kingdoms/alliances to be able to progress throughout the KVK map up until the final zone, and then battling it out. And that doesn't mean everyone's going to be able to make it there, but at least more than what you have now. And the example that we gave here before is if you have 6 zone 1s, but you only have 2 zone 3s, you're basically cutting out 2/3. Instead, cut out 1/3, right? Or half, right by the time you get here. Again, I would have rather seen 3 or 4. Honestly, I would really consider these to be more zone 2s, but we'll just use zone 3 for now. I would rather see 3 to 4 zone 3s, and then 2 to 3 zone 4s, and then Karadeg is like the final zone 5, right? And even if you just make the map a little bit bigger, and then you allow that to happen, I think that would allow for more players, more alliances to enjoy the progression throughout the season. That's the thing you have to understand, is you don't want to cut off people's experience on being able to experience a new season, right? Allowing for as many people to make it as far as they can. And then if they get pushed out, they get pushed out. That's fine, right? Not everyone's going to be able to last in the final zone, but at least giving that opportunity to have constant PvP throughout the season, and then being able to have as many people, again, not everyone, but as many people as you can making it to the final zone, and then let them battle it out from there. Alliance. This is going to be pretty short. I think adding a link to an Alliance Discord, this is something that some other kingdom builders, I should say, allow for you to do. And if I go to the Alliance, just having something here, or even up here, anywhere really, but just have a Discord icon and allow for people to link their Alliance Discord or their Kingdom Discord onto the Alliance page. And then you click it and it'll take you to the app. Next one here is calendar. I think being able to have some type of Alliance calendar or calendar on the Alliance is really important. So, and having it show for a month. Infinity Kingdom does this really well. They have the Alliance calendar. It'll allow for you to put in a header, a title, a description. You can put in coordinates. You can set a reminder up to, I think, like an hour or a few hours before the event starts. So it'll give everyone a ping in the Alliance. I think something like that is great, but allow for it to show you the full month, and then you can click on it. You can add dates to it, add multiple dates to the months, to the certain days on the months as well, and then allow for it to either go a few months in advance or for the whole calendar year. Next one here is, I think, poll customization is really important. I think if you're going to send Alliance mails out and you're going to include polls, allow for those to be customized. Allow for people to have up to 6 polls, polling answers, and then allow for people to customize. You could put a character limit on it if that's 20, 30, 40, 50 characters, but allow for that to happen. And then allow for people to select allow for the Alliance to select how long they want the poll to go for, right? Do increments of an hour, right? Just have a little wheel on it and people could select 1 hour up to 24 hours. Pretty simple. Next one is add read scripts or read receipts. This is really important, right? So either a button on the Alliance mail that members can click to say that they read the mail, which would be at the very bottom of it, or if players scroll all the way through to the bottom of the mail, or if the mail is not long enough to scroll, a read receipt that they'll get sent when the mail opens. When they open, they actually have to click on the mail. I think that should be something that officers and leaders can see to start getting a gauge on how much, conversion the players are having on reading mails. I think that's really important. Unions. So this is something that someone had, I think I saw this in one of the COD Discord suggestions, but they said allow alliances to share road share road walking speed buffs on the roads. Basically just sharing the road buffs, right, between alliances. I actually think this is a great idea, and I'd love to see that getting added. I don't think that's too impactful, but I think it's a nice quality of life update. Next thing for me is turrets and barricades. One, I think they should add barricades back. And turrets, I think that they just need to limit the amount that you can build. Turrets, one build per person, and a player in the alliance, the same thing with barricades, one build per player. And then I think aligning the build and the destruction times for barricades and turrets, if that's not the case, to be the same, right? And I think you scale these. Do like 5 minutes per level, right? So if it's level 1, it takes 5 minutes to build, 5 minutes to destroy. Level 2, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? And every time you want to build a new level, that's how much additional time you have to add on to it. Or if you already have a higher level, then that's how long it takes for you to build the whole level, right? But I think having those numbers the same for build and destroy, and not having where it takes an hour, right, or 2 hours is really important. So I think that would be okay to maybe start off with. And maybe that can be adjusted, right? But you can always, bear in mind, you can always reassess these things and adjust anytime you need to as a developer, right? That's one of the availabilities. But I think limiting the amount that can be built to one per player is incredibly important. Next is villages. I think we just need to revert back to the system. I think the way that they have it right now, where you have to go out and cap it, and there's a limit per alliances, just causes a lot of frustration and friction on the alliances themselves, where they have to basically tell people, oh, you can get this, but you can't get that. So the fact is that, let's be honest, there was nothing wrong with the previous village system. Alliances would connect. They would put territory down. They would connect the road there, and then everyone in the alliance gets it. Now, if you still want to keep the action of having to go out and attack the village there in order to activate the buff for the player, I'm okay with that. But just allow for everyone to be able to get all of the buffs from the village instead of having this kind of limited participation cap. I just think that it's incredibly toxic, and it's very negative to the impact that it has on the players that are there in more unforeseen ways than I think the developers and others may have seen going in. Again, okay with testing things out, but I think now we've seen it already happen over a full season where it's just causing, I think, more challenges than it's actually solving, which in my opinion, it just didn't really need to be solved at that point, at least at its core function. Next one is, I think, increasing the road length. I would say the road length could maybe be increased by 500 kilometers from where we're at currently based on the available road. I think they've already done enough adjustments with how they've restricted the CF placement, how they've restricted being able to play CFs in zone 1s. Now you can't do CFs in zone 2 or 3. I think there's other things that they've done, obviously, throughout recent updates that have assisted in this endeavor. And now let's maybe look at increasing the road length by maybe like 500 kilometers, give or take. I'd love to hear what you guys think on that one. Next one is adding a last active note to the alliance, where Infinity Kingdom had this cool thing where I'd go into the alliance and I could look at the players, like I could look at this, and right under here, under their power, like for example, maybe you do power and you put it here, and then right below here, if I was an R4 or officer, and maybe even if you were a player, I'm not sure if they could see them, but the example here is if you were a member of management, there would be a last online or last logged in or last active, and then it would tell you the number, literally right here on the player so you could see it all. However, I'd be okay if they did that, or if they added a separate tab that said like activity or something here, or some kind of management screen for officers and leaders. That would be cool as well. And then just do it simple. Have it goes 1 minute up to 59 minutes, and then once you hit an hour, it just goes by hours. And then if you hit a day, it's 1D for 1 day, 3 hours. So like 1D, 3H as an example. I think that's really important. Then let's go to the next one, which is appoint a co-leader. This was another suggestion I saw on the COD Discord, where they basically talked about appointing a co-lead or appointing some type of lead or additional position to where that person can hand out titles within the alliance whenever the R5 is offline. I think this is actually a really good idea. The next one is adding a quick open to bundle chest. I think we've already seen how the 10 times goes, and to be fair, if I'm clicking fast enough, I could probably open chest faster than the 10 times if we're just going off of 10 each. So for me, I understand, but honestly, this is such a small quality of life feature. And I don't want to say small, I think it's an important quality of life feature, and it's small maybe when you're talking about the scale of what maybe, I don't even know what they're trying to accomplish really by doing it like that. I just think, look, man, let's keep it easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl, and let's just add in a quick open that opens all of the purchased or bundled chests within the alliance. Yeah, and then let me see here. I have for players. So I think players, Adding home kingdom numbers to profiles permanently, not just during the migration stage up until the end of the season. Adding in where that player's home kingdom is so anyone can view it if they click on a profile. I would love to see that get added for the players specifically. Next one here is going to be PvP. I think adding a breakdown for player profiles on being able to see what their kill breakdowns are. So if I go here, I want to be able to see a breakdown for T1, T2, T3, T4, T5. And then in addition to that, I'd love to also see a breakdown for open field kills versus city, versus pass kills, and then maybe versus kills done on RSS tiles, if they can go that far. However, at minimum, I would at least like to see a T1 through T5 breakdown, but I also think having some of those additional ones for when they can get to it would be great. However, that's more of an add-on for me. I would just want to see a minimum of breakdown of tier kills. Next one is going to be March sizes. And my view on March sizes is that I just think these need to be scaled more appropriately. I think we need to look at the data and we need to see for ourselves on, right, what's the total amount of troops that players are training or being able to train each season. And then looking at the difference between those that maybe spend versus free to play while you're factoring in that data or factoring that into how many total troops are people being able to train, and then figure out if it's like the average free to play player, or like let's say the percentages are leaning like 80% of players in a season are able to train at least 1 million troops. Then okay, right? Then you have to think about, well, if I have 5 marches, right? And I have it at, what I think it's at 125K as the cap, right? That's a little bit less than 2. It's like 1.8, right? Refreshes or march cycles or full legion capacity cycles that I'm able to send out to go and fight. However, if we had the capacity at 100, now that's 2 full marches that you're able to get out, right? Because that's 500K per 5 marches, and a free-to-play can do that 2 times if they were to go out and fight. These are the things you have to look at, because visually, psychologically, this is what's important to the average player, is how many times can I go out there and fight? Nobody wants to train troops, and then you're only able to go out and fight for 15 to 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes, right? If we're being a little bit more conservative, once the fighting starts, and then you're done. So, and bear in mind, that's obviously it's more than that, because, you know, unless your city's up front and you're able to replenish immediately and get right back in the fight, right? It's probably a little bit longer, but you get my point. I think that's how we should look at it, where we should slow scale raising. So for me, if it was me, I would do season 1. Like, I'd look at the data, and if the data indicated where I could at least get 2 to 3 March cycles out, that's what I would set the cap at. Because bear in mind, those that spend and have a lot more troops, they're just going to be able to replenish that much faster. It's not really the most impactful thing for them, right? Because they'll always be able to cycle. The difference is how long will the troops last and survive. There's obviously adjustments that could potentially be made there. However, I think these are really important when you're thinking about how you're adjusting these features for the majority of the players. And that type of data, I think, is incredibly important to look at, and honestly just to know. I think transparency there is very key. So again, that's kind of how I do it. Next thing is reports for PvP. Someone had mentioned this in the CoD Discord, where they said they'd love to see like a damage breakdown and summary, aside from the logs and the results screen that you see, right? So you're seeing a little bit more of a breakdown on like DPS and maybe damage spikes, on was a skill used, maybe some kind of a graph. I mean, I just think there's other things that they can do with the reports. Infinity Kingdom, I'll go back to IK as well. They had this thing where they actually had multiple pages of report breakdowns that you could see. And so I do think there's some value. I think there's some added value that you can put on reports. Next one is ranged units. This is probably one of my biggest ones that you've heard me mention before. But I think with ranged units, as an example, if I'm on this cliff here and I'm elevated cliff or at the top of a ramp, I think you should have like a 10% range increase, right? And it doesn't have to be that big. It can be like 1 or 2 unit lengths. Maybe start off small. But I think that you should, if you're on on elevation, you should be able to hit the unit first, right? If it's max range versus max range, so if it's like mage versus mage, you should be able to hit them before they can hit you, if you're on elevation. I think that's something that I'd love to see. And I'm not saying it has to be OP. It could be a very small amount to start. But I think that would add just another layer of true skill, if you will, and some tactics and strategy that can be applied. Next one is zoom out. So if you can see here, I want to be able to zoom out 1, 2. I want to be able to zoom out at least 2 more times and still be able to see a battle going on, right? Maybe even 3 times. Actually, this might be okay. I'd say 2 to 3 times. I want to be able to zoom out 2 to 3 times and still be able to see the battle going on, right? Because it just shows more of what's happening I think you can include more. You can provide more storylines, more context. You can go to different battlefronts, if you will. So I think that's really important. Next one for me is KVK. Matchmaking. I've been pretty transparent on this, but my view on KVK matchmaking is that I want to see them test this out where they match the strongest kingdoms against each other. So if it's the number 1 through number 4 strongest kingdoms, do that. The number 7 through 8, or sorry, number 5 through 8, 9 through 12, do it that way. And the reason I say this is some people may think, some people might be against this, but you have to understand, because of the way that the migration is included, you may not always get the same matchups every season. Alliances may migrate out, other alliances might migrate in. You might have lower powered kingdoms that get boosts, and they boost their way up into the top 4 or into the top 8 or the top 12 or the top 20, and then you're able to get matched up against them. But I think this is something that, in my view, really needs to happen. Yes, is there a chance that you may see some of the same alliances and same kingdoms in multiple KVK? Sure. But is there also the chance that you'll see new faces? Yes. And I think that's what we need to be open to. The fact is we need to have more balanced KVK matchmaking, so that way alliances of similar power are more inclined and more motivated to participate, because now you have to instill this idea that anyone can win, right? Instead of doing it the way it is now, which again, I'm fine with testing it. But the understanding is that if you pair a couple high-ranked kingdoms, some mid-ranked and some low-ranked, let's be real, the low to mid-ranked are going to be more supplementary pieces. Even worse if you're the lower-ranked, right? It's probably the best of those players are just going to join the higher-ranked alliances, and could be even the case for the middle-ranked alliances. You don't want that to happen. You want healthy, sustainable PvP in your KVKs where people stay in their alliances, and they want to stay there because they feel like, you know what, I have a chance to win. We have a chance to propel our kingdom to a better position within this KVK. So that's really what I would love to see them do, because I think it's going to be, I think it's a lot more of a net positive than, and I think it's a better improvement based on what we have currently. Next one for me is adding home kingdom starting zones. I just think this solves a lot of issues, right? You don't need a truce zone. You don't need the 48-hour no PvP restriction, right, once you log in. You don't need to really worry for the most part about resurgence at that point. Resurgence kind of almost becomes a moot point, because if you have a home kingdom starting zone and you have everyone from that kingdom going into one dedicated zone, right, and you can kind of figure that out a multitude of different ways, but doing that really just simplifies things, right? It's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think it's something worth transitioning to, because I think we're going to get a lot more net positive out of it than we will, and it really eliminates the need for creating some of these workarounds, if you will, spending time devoting developer resources and I would imagine manpower to create these other band-aid fixes, if you will, is what I respectfully call them, rather than, I think, more long-term permanent solutions. The next one for me is going to be the kingdom category. We're almost done here. We got 3 more categories. Adding in home kingdoms. Again, this is something I cannot tell you how important this is. However, I want to be very clear. The idea of adding in home kingdoms is where players and alliances can rest, they can reset, they can reorganize, and they can prepare for the next KVK. However, the most important aspect here, because some people will ask this, well, boss, how long should we have home kingdoms for? Dude, let's keep it easy, breezy, beautiful, cover girl. 1 to 2 weeks. That's the average. We don't need to be in a home kingdom for a month. Right, that's one of the benefits of them creating this unique kind of healing system that they have, where you get the free healing and the RSS healing, but mainly the free healing. So you don't need to be sitting there for a month in your home kingdom. 1 to 2 weeks is all you need. Keep it pushing, Pippin. Next one, accounts and kingdoms. Should have fog cleared, just as the new observation mode allows when viewing another kingdom from your main. And an example here is when you start a new account, you should have the option, if you're going into a season that has fog, where you can, and right after you finish the tutorial, you get to select, 1, do you want to remove fog, but then you don't get to capture any of the villages or the caves or the additional resources that you can from defogging, or do you want to clear fog, or do you want to keep fog, and then you can go ahead and find all of those resources and buffs will be there for you. Dude, simple solution for me. And if you feel like you want more people to do fog, then just make the rewards a little bit more worth it. Easy peasy. Bam. Next one, adding in home kingdom leaderboards. This is something that should be a constant, very similar to what we were saying earlier about having in home kingdom distinction numbers showing at all times, not just during the migration window. So having a home kingdom leaderboard, even because when you're in KVK, all you see is the KVK leaderboard. You need to be able to see, and once again, Infinity Kingdom did a great job of this. When you went into a KVK, you saw your home kingdom leaderboard and your KVK leaderboard, and you could switch between both. Add that in, it would do wonders. Next one is adding a king-queen system. Now, some of you may or may not be against this, but I'm gonna explain this to you in a very simple way on how they could start off and just keep it very easy to manage. So I think if you're going to add this in, which I believe in doing, I think you should only start off with 4 things. One, Kingdom Mail. Being able to send a mail out to every single player in your alliance allows for you to organize the masses, the player base, getting more people into Discord or on some other type of media platform that you use to organize and just do more than what you can do in game. It allows for you to send instructions. You can educate the players, which if you're educating and you're teaching them, what are they more likely to do? Fight for you, to be engaged, to be motivated. Treat it like it's a community. This is what we're talking about. The social aspect that you're really kind of honing in on will do wonders for you. I can't tell you how amazing this is. Right now, it's just very disconnected. Number 2 is migration. Having a truthful and honest system where just allow anyone to apply, but everyone has to be approved or denied by the king or queen in this case. Players that apply will have a resume. This is something that needs to be added. We'll have a resume that will show kingdoms they've played in, the power they were when they left, their kill breakdown from T1 to T5, a merit breakdown, which could be a total merit breakdown, seasonal breakdown, and then if they've played 2 or more seasons, it would show an average. And the next one is alliances they were in. They were last in at the time of migration, right? So if they were in an alliance or they left an alliance before migration, what was the last alliance they were in before applying? And then the last one is maybe like an activity report where it shows like the average time they were online per day, right? So if that was, they're online 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day or something. And then maybe and then like accumulator or peak average time per day. Like, again, they were on for an hour or 2 hours from this time to this time. And maybe it shows an average there. Now, the activity report is give or take, right? That's more of an optional thing, but I like it. The next one for me is, I think, an activity option within the king-queen system, within the interface, where it gives you data on your entire kingdom. And it shows you just a few things. You can always expand on this. It starts with number of players logged in at least 1 time, 3 times, and 5 times per day, right? And this can just go on a rolling reset. Next one is number of players logged in and accumulated time of the day for at least 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. That means each day they logged in for at least 15 minutes, a total, right? Even if they logged in multiple times, 30 minutes and an hour. Keep it simple, but I think this would really give kingdoms a solid identity and allow for them to try to nurture this and figure out ways to improve this. Just like if you're at a job and you're trying to increase engagement and work production. Why not treat it the same way here? These can be done in healthy ways. Next one is titles. I think buffs are great to add in. However, if they're going to add this in, they need to add in an automated system where what the system will do is players in the kingdom can join a queue. That queue will distribute the buffs, and then as the king or who's ever in charge of doing titles, you have custom options where you can set for each unique buff how long you get it for. And then you can do it where you can't have the same buff at the same time. So you can only have one buff. And that can be like, again, you could set that for every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, everyone gets a buff. And then you could see what the number of the queue is, right? So maybe you can adjust how long people are getting times. You have certain days where maybe people will get longer times than others. That would be dope. Think about how much time that would save if Call of Dragon, if Rise of Kingdoms had an automated queue where players could join, and then all you have to do is just set the timer, and then they get it for that amount of time, and then it moves on. And it just shows you, like, you got the buff. It shows you a time or something in the top left or top right corner. Next one is merging low activity and dead kingdoms. This is a must. However, it should only be a must after a period of time has elapsed. We're not talking a season. I'm talking a kingdom should be up for at least 3 seasons, in my opinion, before this is considered. And then you just have to meet a minimum activity threshold. So, like, let's say you took the 5 or 6 or 7 lowest activity kingdoms, and then you just had to meet like a 1,000 activity member threshold, right? Where you were just trying to combine a number of kingdoms on the lowest end at the bottom of the barrel activity wise, and you just wanted to try and meet around 1,000 active players when you did a pure merge. Whether it's that number or it's a lower number, whatever it may be, I think the important thing is that kingdoms have to be up long enough before that's considered. But I can tell you right now, I'm really more invested. I'm really more of becoming more of a believer in merging low activity dead kingdoms. Lastly, quality of life. When clicking on a player's legion, especially if you're observing in another kingdom, it'd be nice if you click on that player's profile, and then, or if you clicked on that player's unit, it would give you an option to look at their profile. So like if you wanted to message them or something for that example. Next one is hospital. Someone suggested this on the COD Discord, but the ability to select default or to set priority troops that you want to heal first. Next one, and this is a great one, adding in an auto translation feature where if I'm logging in and I select my preferred language as English, every single message that opens, whether that's in Tamara's chat, if that's in my Alliance chat, if that's in World chat, if that's in DMs, they're automatically translated. I shouldn't have to click the translation feature. There needs to be an automatic translation feature that's applied, and maybe you can toggle it on or off. It's up to you. But if I had that, I would just leave it on all day long. Next one is being able to see Behemoth HP while observing other kingdoms. Very small quality of life thing, but I think that'd be nice because I've noticed that when I'm watching other kingdoms raid, I can't see the Behemoth HP. Along with being able to see how many players are in the raid. Sometimes it glitches or whatnot, or the amount of people that are in the Behemoth territory. That would be nice as well. And then this next one is a smaller one, is removing the member join or left from Alliance chat. So when a member joins or they leave, it shows like a small little message in your Alliance chat. I think that should be removed and it should just show in the logs. And next one is events. I think we should have some more PvP events, kind of Roots of War-ish like, but maybe you can do them at different scales where it's 5v5, 10v10, 15 versus 15, 20 versus 20, 25 versus 25, right, every 5, or you do them wider if you don't want to do that many. And then you can have different objectives. You can do like open field, objective based, like last man standing, free for all, king of the hill, these types of things. I think that's really where we can expand on these type of events. And maybe you can add some kind of matchmaking system into it, right? So it's a little bit more real time with being able to find those across the entire game. And then it'll look for like comparable matchups, like similar power, similar tier troops, etc. Next one is Crucible of Courage. So I've heard this from multiple people where a few of these things that make sense to me, and I didn't know this was the case in Crucible of Courage because I honestly can't remember last time I participated in the event, but having no CP cost, no command point cost. And when I was playing Infinity Kingdom, I just don't remember participating in specific events costing, especially if you're having like a lot of there. This somewhat makes sense to me by not having a CP or a command point cost for Crucible of Courage. However, I'd love to hear what you guys think on that. I'm somewhat okay with this, unless there's just so much CP that's out there to grab that it just doesn't really matter. But then the next one is no interaction with other PvE units while doing it. So like you're not aggro pulling other Darklings or other units out there or creatures from AoE damage while doing the event. It'd be nice if there was some type of like disabled feature for that while you're doing it. Next one is, I think there needs to be an event where free-to-play players can gain hero tokens for gated or pay-to-win or spender heroes, right? Very similar like Card King and Rise of Kingdoms, where even a free-to-play you can spend gems and you can unlock heroes that might be on the wheel, as an example. I think this is something I'd love to see where it's an event that allows for free-to-play to unlock all the heroes, but again, they have to spend a certain amount of resources and they still would not be able to do it as fast as someone who's spending. The next one is War Pets. This was a feature I saw in the COD Discord as well, where they said adding in a lock favorite feature to separate War Pets, so you keep them somewhere else so you don't accidentally like remove them or release them, as an example. And I might be butchering the explanation there, but I kind of like this, where you can basically set having 5 War Pets or something, or a certain number, and I'd love to hear what you guys think on that. With that in mind, that is it. 38 minutes, did not expect for this to go that long. I'd really love to hear what you guys think on any of the suggestions I provided. I think for the most part, all of these, or I would say 99% of these, I really very much believe in, with a few of them, me kind of being a little iffy, but just leaning more to including rather than excluding. And again, I'll have a link to this sheet as well in the description pin comment. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch y'all later.